Hi, it's Sue with Saving Words. We're on part 9 today. Sit back and just join me. Thank you. Thursday, April 7th, 2011. In bed in Park Ridge. I was up earlier at 6:10 a.m. waking Michael for school and getting him off to the engineering club. But then I started reading an article and I fell back asleep. Mike's been on a phone interview since 9 a.m. and is heading out for a job interview. I said, "Okay." A kiss and a prayer. We kissed. Then I took his hand and asked, "Who's in control here?" "God," he said. "I'll just be there." I'm like, all good. The article I was reading about was about centering prayer. It's a photocopy of a chapter from a book that our friend Pauline gave to Mike at the centering prayer group meeting last night. Why does it seem so strange to read a chapter called More Objections to Centering Prayer? Really? Like our young priest was saying last week, wouldn't it be great if people would just take some time to reflect and pray, especially during Lent? I don't know what I would do without centering prayer. Who wouldn't want to sit down and open their heart and consent to God's presence and action within? Anyway, I believe Kath and Mom are with Dad now. I'm staying home today. The first word I got about Dad yesterday was that he had eaten breakfast but was tired and weak. So I wasn't sure at all what to expect when I got there. But I met Kath at the hospital. Pop's eyes were closed most of the time, and his body and voice were depleted. But Kath said, "Hey, Dad, want to show Sue what you can do? How about some ankle pumps?" And Dad began pointing his toes toward and away from him. "Yay," we shouted. And a few minutes later, Patty, the floor nurse, joined us. And she said she hoped to have Dad sitting up for 3 hours the next day. The staff has worked toward Dad's healing and having him become strong enough to receive therapy at the hospital. After she left, the physical therapist came in. He asked Pop to perform some ankle pumps too. Then he bent Dad's knees toward the ceiling and asked Dad to tighten his leg and then to work through a little resistance applied to his thigh. After the exercises in the supine position, the physical therapist and Kath prepared to put on Dad's back brace. Dad did a log roll over to one side and Kath situated the clamshell brace under his side, and then Dad rolled over and into it. After some repositioning, Kath and the physical therapist began to fasten the 4 Velcro straps of the brace. Dad said he was doing okay, and all I wondered about was how that felt on his 2 broken ribs from the first surgery and on his swollen abdomen because of constipation. But then a miracle happened. He sat up. Oh my God, it was an amazing sight. Of course, it was hard for him to raise himself, and I maneuvered his skinny legs off the bed and onto the floor, but everything was working. He was okay. The physical therapist straightened one of Dad's legs, and I arranged the other. Sitting up in the hard plastic torso brace over a green hospital gown with his feet tucked into yellow no-slip socks, Pop looked great. "I should have brought my camera," I said. Then the physical therapist instructed Dad through the movements. First, raise one heel high and let it fall, and again and again. He told him that the key to exercise is repetition. Then Dad rested his feet and placed both hands on the bed to find balance so the physical therapist could let go for just a second. "Open your eyes, Mr. Fox," he said. "Keep your eyes open. It can help you with your balance." Then the therapist asked Pop to raise one hand and put it on his shoulder. Over and over, Pop did that. Then he asked him to place one hand on his own thigh and then to place his other hand on his other thigh. Pop was asked to hold this position for several seconds. The therapist checked Pop's oxygen throughout. In the bed before Pop started, the level was 91. Even with some exercises underway, the level was 94. The level was supposed to be over 90, so this was good news. After the session, which lasted about 15 minutes, Pop said he wasn't really that exerted. But then he said, I won't do that again right now. Kath and I gave Pop a break. We went outside for a bit. I said I was pleasantly surprised that Pop could do all that, but I was still concerned about how in the world he would become eligible for physical therapy at the hospital in a couple more days. Kath said she thought Pop did a little more and did a little better the day before in physical therapy with the other physical therapist. I guess I didn't realize he had sat up and dangled his legs the day before. Outside, Kath talked about the importance of nutrition and said that Dad had fibbed to her about eating breakfast, that actually he hadn't eaten at all. I said I'd stay until Dad's dinner arrived and would encourage him to eat. I said I would ask him why he wasn't eating at various times to help us understand what's going on. When we got back to the room, Pop had been moved onto his side, but he said he was uncomfortable. We called the assistant, and she said she would move him in 10 minutes. He had been rotated because of a skin breakout. His eyes were mostly closed, as they had been for the last 2 days, but I stood next to Pop and asked, Pop, why aren't you eating? Is it number 1, you don't like the food anymore? Or number 2, you don't feel like eating? Or number 3, the bowel trouble situation? Or none of these? 3, he said. Okay, Pop, I said, okay. It was time for Kath to depart, and Steve said he was on his way. I told Pop that Steve was coming soon and that we would sit with him through dinner. Will you agree to eat any dinner? I asked him. I'll pick at it, he said. Soon the nursing assistant reappeared to position Dad, and his dinner tray arrived a couple seconds after that, so she set him up for dinner. Just then Steve entered. Steve and I talked freely as Dad struggled to open the 2 crackers in the plastic wrap. Pop, so many people have trouble opening that. I offered to help, but he wanted me to back off. He didn't eat even half the soup, but he did devour all the orange sherbet. Pop, I listened to NPR on the drive over here. I said, did you hear the report from the guy who was in Yemen? Pop had requested his Sony Walkman the first couple days back in Palos Hospital, and it's accompanied him ever since. But I don't think he had his headphones on earlier today. I said on the side, the reporter mentioned that most of the population of Yemen chew on some drug that grows all over Yemen, and that people are in a haze from 1 to 7 p.m. daily. Yes, Pop said he knew about that. Well, my brother and I had some fun with this, acting goofy, as if we were on it. We were cracking jokes. Then Dad asked us to remove the tray, and I followed Steve as he carried it toward the hall. Let's hang on to this, I said. Pop was fading a little after eating, so Steve suggested we go down to the cafeteria and let Dad snooze. Before we left, I asked Pop, before you sleep, how about a slice of meat or some potatoes? He declined. Steve and I chatted at the cafeteria table. I filled him in on the day, including Dad's answer to why he was no longer eating. Steve said, I wonder if his bowels have shut down. His statement was alarming, drawing in a new reality, another body part possibly breaking down. And there's no way Pop could survive physical therapy without eating. Saturday, April 16th, 2011. Damn it. I can't find a pen in my bag or purse, just this crappy pencil. The Bulls game is on. I'm in Dad's room at Manor Care Rehab Center. I stopped writing for more than a week because all this has gotten to be too much. So now he and I sit in his private room at the rehab center about 10 minutes away from Mom's house. Pop's oxygen mask is on his face, and he is sleeping on his side. He doesn't know the Pacers lead the Bulls 65-56. Derrick Rose has 22 points in the third quarter. Some man down the hall from Dad's room was screaming. So I walked to the hallway to determine which room the cry was coming from. It was coming from right next door. An elderly man in a wheelchair parked beside his bed was calling out. I headed to the nurse's station to report a man was screaming. The staff looked up but didn't react. One person finally said, "We know." I asked, "Should I just close my dad's door?" A nurse responded, "If it's disturbing him." About 2 minutes later, someone entered the man's room and asked, "You screaming? What's wrong?" She did have compassion in her voice, thank God. I never did close Dad's door. Mom had a hard day yesterday. Steve said she's processing the reality that Dad's dying. She was here when I got here this morning. She brought Dad coffee and a bagel from home as he requested last night, which he consumed. The move from the hospital after almost 4 weeks to this rehab center was stressful because the nurses wouldn't put the clamshell brace on Pop. I feel pretty useless at the moment, although I see Dad's eyes are open. I told him the Pacers are beating the Bulls. The nurse and CNA just repositioned him since his right shoulder was getting sore. They moved him onto his left side. He had been coughing, so I got up and meekly asked, "Pop, do you want to blow into this bottle to see if you can get that phlegm up?" He didn't respond at all. I said okay and put the bottle away and picked this pencil back up. It's about 50 degrees and raining today. The grass is fresh and green, and the daffodils rule right now. I got up again, grabbed the bottle, and approached Pop, offering him the device. I waited for a response. He shook his head no. And I just did it again. Okay, time to back off. Honor thy father, right? Right? God, calm my heart. Continue to help me let go, but to act when I should. Bulls 104, Pacers 99 final. Wow, 39 points for Derrick Rose. Tuesday, April 19th, 2011. Pop was dozing and Mom was in the room when I got here an hour ago. Mom just left after filling me in. It struck me how much Mom looked like her mom just now. Her mom, my grandmother, passed away on her birthday 7 years ago. It was her 94th birthday. The nursing staff came in and asked about lunch, but Pop declined at first. Then they specifically offered grilled cheese, and he agreed to that. The lunch has now arrived, and here it sits on a white plate on the gray tray. The grilled cheese was cut into half and now into quarters. He's still not interested, though. Not now. Not anymore. Not even taking one bite. Steve brought in Grandpa Fox's old Sony solid-state radio on Saturday. I'm unable to tune it into NPR, but it did pick up jazz radio from the College of DuPage. I asked Pop if he liked the song it was playing, but he didn't answer. I'll ask again in a little bit. I'm not seeing much change in Pop. He doesn't look too bad, that's for sure, but he's still so weak. And Mom said that his knees have atrophied. I really have no idea what's happening or what to expect day to day, or maybe that's simply wishful thinking and denying what's obvious. But yay, Pop is eating a little bit of grilled cheese all of a sudden. The nurse had just reheated it and had returned. So that's good, and he's sipping juice right now too, some apple juice. And now, a nibble of colorful fruit cocktail. Progress for today. Wednesday, April 20th, 2011. Mike's on his way to work, and Michael is off to school in formal wear. That is, the dress pants, dress shirt, striped tie, and shiny shoes. There's a game tonight. But he definitely looks better than he feels. He's been exhausted and went to bed at 8 p.m. yesterday, even though he still had studying to do. He's feeling the weight of the pressures of school and the demand of volleyball. Last night, Steve called and said the nurse supervisor, who we spoke to before I left yesterday, has recommended that Dad return to the hospital. Recommended that Dad return to the hospital as he is struggling with his health. Mom and Kath were at Manor Care with Steve, and Steve called in Uncle Dick to see Dad, as Dad's time may be nearing. That is the end time, may be nearing. All of us are walking through Dad's situation with him, and we feel his pain, and we feel so helpless. We want the best for Dad, and we keep pushing along the path to recovery. But my question is, what does Dad want at this point? Does he in fact want PT, respiratory treatment, OT? What does he know about his condition? Kath said the doctor hasn't told Dad the CT scan results so that Dad can retain hope and get stronger. I think Dad probably knows the cancer has spread. We are all meeting at Manor Care in a few hours, and we'll see how Dad is doing today. Are we misreading the situation? Is he conserving his energy so he can get stronger? Time to ask him again. Pop, what are your wishes? I cannot predict or imagine his words, but maybe he'll say, okay, I'll try therapy, or I'd like to go home, or not answer at all. What would that mean? Or maybe he'll respond, I myself just don't know. Or, can't you see I'm trying and doing the best I can? I met Kath and Mom at 11 a.m. in Manor Care. Kath had texted me that Dad had received therapy this morning in bed, and when they rolled his wheelchair into the dining room, they did that so that he could eat oatmeal. I'm at my wit's end. Pop had some bed therapy and sat in the wheelchair and was dressed for the day, but he continued to sleep. He continued to keep his eyes closed and not eat, not converse, not anything. Kath said to just stay on him and be positive. Let's try that. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. This is the end of part 9.